Awesome. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me tonight. I plan on going over the moments of truth. The first thing I would like to remind everybody is that you are not in this alone. And this is not changing slides. Here we go. You are not in this alone. Well, here, this is my contact information. You have my email address and my phone number. If for whatever reason you have any questions after this meeting is over, please feel free to reach out directly to me and I will help answer any questions that you have. In the moments of truth, we first should identify what does this mean? And as you can see here, what it means is that the very first moment that anybody comes into contact with anything to do with Toastmasters, that becomes the decisive time where the initial impressions are formed, and this is known as the moments of truth. There are several different pieces to the moments of truth. We go over first impressions, the membership orientation, fellowship and variety of the meetings and communications of the meetings, program planning, membership strength, and achievement recognition, always being recognized. Okay, let's start with the first impressions. Who can tell me what they think first impressions means? Anybody, please just open your mic and say something.
Did you come prepared? Oh, did you come? Did you come? That's the first impression you came.
Anybody?
I think it's also it's how people are greeted, how they're treated. Do they get a chance to introduce themselves like we just saw? Are they do they feel good? Do they feel like they're welcome? Things like that.
Awesome. Thank you. So
First impression is a good impression, like looking, behavior, dressing, talking.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say it's definitely along those lines. It said, whether you're meeting people the first time, maybe having a job interview, people form an impression initially. They say within the first 2 minutes, they get pretty much a lasting impression of what they think of you. And even though your continuation with interacting with them may go on a lot longer, that first 2 minutes really forms kind of a glue in their mind, and it's you want to start off on the right foot. So I think all of those things, when people walk into a club, people you don't know, it's sometimes can be daunting, especially if someone hasn't been to Toastmasters, that people they don't know at all. So how people smile when you walk in the door, if somebody comes in and greets you, if you feel like they're aware that you came in and you feel welcomed, all of those are first impressions, and you want them to be good ones for the member, and certainly beneficial for the club, that person's more likely to want to join in and participate.
Awesome. Thank you very much. You are correct. It is all about the first impressions, the impression that the person receives as soon as they walk in. We at Toastmasters, we set everything up to be member centric. And how that member feels, or how that person feels when they very first come into our club, is what our first impressions are all about. Is the guest greeted warmly, and is introduced to all the different peoples? There are several different members that they should be introduced to. You want to make sure that they meet the officers. You want to be able to have the officers and the guests talk cordially with each other, find out a little bit about each other and things like that, because what you're doing is you're building a relationship with this guest. And it's important that the guest feels like they belong. Anything that puts the guest off or out of the way or pushes them away is something that's going to say, I'm gonna think now. And of course, once the guest is there, when the meeting is actually over, you want to be able to make sure you can follow up with the guest. You want to be able to ask the guest what they thought of the meeting. And you can only do that if you manage to get a hold of their contact information. Now, when we meet in person, we actually have a physical guest book that our guests can sign. Here on the virtual world, you can't sign the guest book, but we always ask for the guest's email address and phone number and drop it into the chat. That way our VPM and our VPPR and our secretary have a way to contact that guest and follow up with the guest. You want to make sure that the room is all professionally arranged. You want to make sure that it looks good, the temperature is right, all the papers that are need to be handed out, your voting slips, all that stuff should all be laid out. Name tags, if you happen to be using them, should be laid out. I've been in several clubs where we actually have the triangle name tags, and you put them on the table in front of your name, so that in front of your seat, so that everyone knows who's who wherever they are in the meeting, and you can see the names directly from the lectern. And you also want to make sure that it's in a convenient meeting location. Now, this particular club was meeting at the College of the Canyons, and then no, it was meeting at the, what was the name of the college, May? It wasn't the College of the Canyons.
Eek.
Charter College.
Charter, yeah.
It was meeting at Charter College. And then they had a problem with the water, and it flooded the meeting room. So we ended up moving to Boston Scientific. However, Boston Scientific currently does not allow guests to come in and meet because of the pandemic. Once that is resolved, we'll be meeting in person again, and likely have a hybrid meeting of some sort. But you always want to make sure that it's conveniently located, it's easy to find, and it's easy to get to. Guests should be invited to address the club. It's usually the Toastmaster or the presiding officer will ask the guests to introduce themselves. And at the end of the meeting, we'll ask the guests two questions, two key questions. First question: what did you like about the meeting that will guarantee you come back again? When you ask that question, they're selling themselves on your club. The second question you should always ask is, are you ready to join? You should always try to be closing that sale and getting the guests to join, because the more guests you turn into members, the more fun your club is going to have. There are several different links that you can go look at. Do not worry about copying down these links. I will drop a copy of my slides into the chat room when I'm done. Someone please remind me to drop them there during the question and answer period. You don't have to memorize any links. All the links will be there, and you just have to click on them. So it's okay. The next part in the moments of truth is about membership orientation. Who can tell me what they think membership orientation is? Anybody?
Being assigned a mentor.
Assign a mentor. Very important. Anyone else?
Talking about how Toastmaster can help them in their jobs or personal life or careers.
Certainly.
Jim, are we talking about when the moment the person signs up, or are we talking about walking them through what Toastmasters is like, or what is this?
After they sign up, they became
After
a
they
member.
sign up?
Yes, they became a member.
Yeah, I think if somebody's never been in Toastmasters, we ought to safely walk them through the process so they know exactly what to do and what to do next. Get them online, get them involved.
Awesome. So the first thing that I like is a member induction, a formal member induction. And in order to have this to happen, that means that we ask the member to step outside of the room for a moment. We take a vote as to whether or not we want this member to join the club. And when we say yes or no, we invite the member to come back. And then we tell the member what the results are. And at which point, when they become a member of the club, you actually induct the member, have them raise their hand, go through the script for induction ceremony, and present them a pin for joining. And now everyone sits there and thinks, oh my goodness, you're going to present everyone with a pin, but that pin is very important. Every little teeny tiny thing that you do to make that member feel important sets an impression and keeps them engaged. So yes, give them that membership pin that they can stick on there and be a proud Toastmaster. You should definitely assign a mentor. I know that that was one of the things that was
Mhm.
mentioned. All new members should immediately be assigned a member by the VPE. That mentor is there to answer that new member's questions, because there's no way a new member who has not been in Toastmasters before knows anything at all about stuff in Toastmasters. As the mentor and part of the orientation, you should be able to walk the member through how to get onto the website, how to get onto Toastmasters International, how to take the assessment for pathways and pick pick a pathway of their choice, which one is important to them. And I recommend that each mentor and mentee, when they get together, they sign a mentoring contract. And in this contract, the mentor says, these are the things that I'm going to do. That way the mentee knows what to expect from the mentor. And then the mentee turns around and says, these are the things I'm going to do. And that way the mentor knows how to help the mentee. It's a back and forth signature on a piece of paper that indicates how one is going to help the other reach their goals. You want to also be able to get them onto pathways. And once they pick a path, you want to be able to walk them through all the intricacies of pathways, how to get into base camp, how to access their path, how to access their projects. Show them what the projects means, give them a little feel for what's going on, and then introduce them in depth into the icebreaker. Every single path has an icebreaker, and get them going on the icebreaker, starting to feel comfortable with learning how to speak. Yes, Mary.
I
You know,
just,
y-
I have to laugh at that because you know that it's old, because I am in engaging humor and I don't even see it there, okay? I just wanted to add that. They
oh
asked
yes, yes, yes. This it's an old slide. Yes,
also.
I agree. It probably should get updated. It's also necessary during this orientation that you need to find out, or well, the VPE or somebody needs to find out what is it that the member is looking for. This member has a specific goal that they want to reach, and therefore they have certain things they want to learn. And we as a club need to make sure that that person is going towards that goal, the one that they want. If they're going off on the left hand or the right side rather than down the middle into their goal, then they're probably not going to be interested for a long time because they're not getting what they want. You need to make sure that the club and the VPE understand exactly what the member wants, and then develop a path to get that member going in that direction. You can also discuss any accommodations for members with disabilities. I am in a couple of clubs where we have some people who are hearing impaired, some people who are visually impaired, and I haven't been in clubs with anyone with wheelchairs, but I know they exist. I know Mark has a wheelchair. So all these accommodations need to be explained to the member in the event that the member needs them. And we should be able to supply any support necessary to accommodate whatever disabilities that member has. And then, of course, the all dreaded speaking role. Oh my God, I joined the club. I got to speak. Oh, we're a communications club. It's okay. It's okay. The whole point of getting them going early, believe it or not, is to get them going early. In order for members to progress in speaking, they have to practice. And the only way to practice is to get up there and do it. Then you get those evaluations and everyone will sit there and cheer them on and give them evaluations that are worthy of their speech, point out the good things, point out one or two of the things that they can improve upon and move them forward. Always, always supporting the member trying to reach their goals. Don, I see your hand is raised. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's excellent point. I mean, I think we find out that the sooner the member gets engaged and gives their icebreaker and starts to move on with their program, the more likely they are to stay engaged in with the club. And I think it's also true with and I think a lot of us will find that even before they give their speech or along with functional roles, because sometimes we all find that a member might take on a functional role, maybe it's time or something, and they just get really into that comfort zone and said, yeah, you'll see them signing up for timer every time. But I think it's important for people to step out of their comfort zone, even outside of the speech. And hey, if you haven't been Toastmaster before, you haven't been table topics, you haven't been evaluation once you get through those first speeches, that's the best reason to take it on, because you're doing something you're not familiar with. And that's a large part of what's going to make them having more fun with it and more successful in the speaking part, formal speeches, and just the overall engagement with the club. And it's building their leadership skills. So I think to get them involved, even at the first meetings, if you can, with at least a role to start with, and then encourage them to take on some others as well.
Point taken. Yes, sir. There are those people like me who are such introverts, don't like to speak at all. When you get those type of people, you should be finding out what their goals are. Because when I first joined Toastmasters, I didn't give my first speech until 14 months after I joined. And that really wasn't because I was afraid to speak. I simply just didn't want to. I wanted to learn the leadership skills. So I took out the competent leader book and I went through that book. And that was the goal that I wanted to reach. I really don't understand why people are afraid to speak. I do know that it exists. I know it. I know that everyone or just about everyone has this huge fear of getting up and talking in front of an audience of strangers, mostly because they don't want to look bad. But I don't understand the fear. Even though I know that it exists, I don't understand it. When I came into Toastmasters, I wasn't concerned about speaking. I ran for lieutenant governor. It was nothing to get up on my soapbox and give a 15 or 20-minute speech off the top of my head. So coming into Toastmasters and learning how to speak wasn't of a concern for me.
Can I share my part?
Certainly.
I was afraid of being stared at. No, not really stared at, but people's eyes looking at me.
Is that why you always have your eyes closed?
No, no, I have my eyes closed because I'm either sleepy or I'm trying to open them up. No, I think it's more of the fear of looking back at people, because when I look at the person in front of me before I started speaking. I was like a deer in the headlight. I became afraid. That was my experience.
Awesome. Now we understand. Now, Don did make a mention that we want to get the member involved, and I happen to agree with Don. We want to get the member involved in all sorts of club activities, any club activities that there are, because the more involved and the more engaged the member is, the more that member will feel important because they're part of something that is bigger than them. And that will keep them there, that will keep them as part of the club, and it will always keep them moving forward because they want to improve themselves and help others at the same time. These are the resource links for this section. We'll go on to the next section. We're going to be talking about the fellowship of the club, the variety, communications, and how we make things different and more enjoyable. And from a guest perspective, the very first thing that you want to do is to make sure that guest is greeted warmly. Go up to the guest, say hello, congratulate them, find out why they're there, make them feel like they belong to you, and develop that rapport. It's important that you have the rapport. Toastmasters is not, I repeat, not just about speaking. It's about relationships. And if you can get that guest or new member to become relatable to everyone that's in the club and develop friendships that are within the club, that person will not leave because they belong. And it's always about that relationship of making them belong. You want to make sure that while you do this, you have enjoyable educational meetings. You don't want to just sit there and have someone come up to this podium, blah 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 blah. No, come on. You want excitement. You want to be able to have the people there make enjoyable speeches that engage the audience, get them involved, get them thinking, get them wondering what's next. Doing those type of things create the imagination of everyone who's listening and makes them wonder, oh my God, it would be so nice if I could get up there and do that too. You want to have regularly scheduled social events. This is important. It doesn't matter how often you do it, so long as you do it on a regular basis. I know that we're in a couple of clubs here, and every 6 months or so, there's a dinner. Then we celebrate on the holidays, so you have potlucks on the holidays. Sometimes we will go out to the bar and just enjoy some drinks or something like that. You want to be able to have some sort of social event that goes on with the members so that they can enjoy each other's company and develop their relationships even outside of Toastmasters. One of the other important things that you want everyone to do is you want them to participate into the area or the district and international events. These are well renowned. You have your speech contest, you have the different conferences that go on. You even have the one for the one that's coming up here in August. I think it's the 16th to the 20th is the international conference. Everyone should go to that. If nothing else, go in for the free section. Go to the Toastmasters International website and log into there and join the free portion of the international contest. Go in, go see it, enjoy it, find out what's going on, see what people around the entire world are doing as compared to what happens in your club. And Mary Elaine is here, and she is trying to work out some features to do an inter-club event. So we want to talk about doing where two clubs run a meeting together, which is what we're going to try on August 2nd. So this is type of things that we could be doing to make it more fun and interactive with other clubs. And of course, we always want to be able to keep in touch with each other. I recommend that we have some sort of a newsletter. We do have a website that's updated on a regular basis. Pictures are updated. We make it a little interactive. We always point people towards the website in order to get anything done. It is also the location where we store all our files so that everyone has access to the files. It's a great resource for any club member if they have anything that they want to do. Everything should be out there on that website, and we should be keeping that up to date. We should have a webmaster and take care of all that information. And of course, again, more links. Now comes the fun part. How do you get the programs going? What type of meetings are you going to have? How will they be organized? It's important that as a club, we keep our members informed of what's coming up in the future. What happened in the past isn't so much as important as to what's coming up next, because what's next is what they want to be involved in. So we should always have some sort of program with an agenda that is publicized in advance for any of our meetings. We should have it for the mentorship meetings. We should have it for our regular meetings on the first and third. We should have it for our officers meeting. Whatever happens, it should be published. It should be on the website, and it should be open and available to everybody in the club. Members should always be prepared to carry out whatever program assignments that they volunteered for. So if you were there and you said, okay, I'm going to be the grammarian next month or next week, then when you show up to the meeting, you should be prepared to be that grammarian. Don't sit there and show up and then say, oh no, I forgot, I can't do it. Ah, I'm going to run away. No, show up, be on time, do what you say you're going to do, and we will always succeed. It is the success of the club and the members of the club that make everything work and everything enjoyable. Without it, it's not worth doing because it's not going to be fun. A- Anything worth doing has got to be fun, and we need to make sure that happens. And all projects should be from the Pathways program. And I see Mary Elaine is looking at it. Is engaging humor there? Is it there? Yes, it is. It's there.
There it
It's the
is.
third one in the first column. All projects, including this very speech that I'm giving now, they should all be tied to some sort of Pathways project. Somebody should be evaluating it, and you should be getting credit for everything that you do. Meetings should always begin and end on time. So the sergeant at arms is responsible for getting it started, and the presiding officer is responsible for ending it. But we don't want to take up people's time where we don't have to. So you start and end on time. And of course, the most fun part about any club meeting is our table topics. And we should have very creative ways of doing table topics or any type of activity we're going to do in place of table topics, because it's the part where everyone has to think on their feet. And that makes it fun. We've had several different ways of doing them in our clubs here. I'm open to all other suggestions. We've had people come on and say a single word, and someone has to create a story around that word. We've had situations where or situational table topics where you give the beginning situation and then you stop and then the person who's answering has to finish. We've had we've had places where you reach into a grab bag and you pull out something like you reach in and you pull this out, and then that person has to pretend they're the inventor of this clip, and they have to talk all about how they invented it. So you can have an inventor table topics. So all sorts of different things that we can do. Make them fun, make them enjoyable, keep people engaged. Our evaluations should always be positive and helpful evaluations. Now we teach the sandwich technique, but there's one key piece that a lot of people seem to miss when they use this sandwich technique, and that's to answer the question why. And it's very important that you have a why. So when you use the sandwich technique and you have the positive section up there with all the different things that you really like, then you move into the improvements. And in the improvements, you might say certain things like, "Oh, Don, you should lower your camera." Okay, why should Don lower that camera? And what effect does his not lowering the camera have on the audience? If you can present to the speaker the why of the audience, then that speaker has a reason to do something differently. So it's always important to provide that why. And then of course you end with some positive thing because you want them to come back and you want them to speak again. They're paying all sorts of good money to be here. You want to encourage them to come back and speak as often as possible. Get great use out of their money. Next, we're going to talk about membership strength. Who can tell me what membership strength should be? Anybody?
Anybody that's participating, a membership strength is ones that they're participating in the meetings one way or the other. And that strengthens the club.
Anybody else? Membership
All the,
strength. Go ahead.
all the members show up in the meetings.
So,
Yeah.
so membership strength refers to the number of people that are in the club.
Oh,
And Toastmasters International says that charter strength is 20 or more. 20 or more. So if you have clubs similar to this particular club here, they started with the base of 11, which means they had to get at least 5 more members by the end of the year. They ended up with 17, but they didn't reach charter strength. Charter strength is 20 people. If you have 20 people, you have enough people in the club to show up to the meeting, to hand out all the different functionary roles and without people taking on multiple roles in the single meeting. There have been several times where I had to be the Toastmaster and the general evaluator and the table topics master. A person shouldn't have to take on 3 or 4 roles. If they are, that's showing that the membership strength is lacking, and the VPM and the officers need to put together a plan to build that membership strength back up. The goal is 20 members, and the goal for this club should be 20 members by the end of the Toastmaster year, starting August 1st through
July the 1st.
September. Starting August 1st through September 30th is the Smedley Award membership drive.
Oh,
It's important that we drive this drive because the goal is to get 5 new members in the club in order for that drive to be successful. And if you get 5 new members, it's the new members who will bring in more new members. So go out there and find those members and bring them in, and we can grow this club to a phenomenal number. I would love to see 60 members in this club. That would be a lot of fun. We could end up running 3 different Toastmasters meetings all at the same time. That would be awesome. That would be a problem worth having. Members, when they get there, they need to be retained. And the only way for us to retain them is to make them feel important, because they have to be part of something that is bigger than them emotionally, inside themselves. They want to feel like they belong. If you don't believe me, just look at yourself. How many times have you gone to an organization, you sat there, nobody said anything to you, but you stayed at that organization? I don't know of anyone who has done that. I've been to several different organizations. If people don't even ask me to join, why should I bother joining? I'll just disappear into the wind. I was not engaged. I was not asked to help. I was not asked to do anything. So I left. Everybody wants to feel important. Everybody, even everyone here tonight, we all want to feel important. And in order to do that, we need to feel like we belong, and we need to feel like what we are doing and providing makes a difference. And if we provide that to our members, they will stay. We should also be promoting our club throughout all the different medias and all the different organizations, whatever we can to advertise our club. Because just like any business, if you don't advertise your business, you'll never get customers. And if we don't advertise our club, we'll never get members. The same theory applies. So advertise everywhere that you can. The more advertisement you do, the more you'll have club members coming in, and the more fun you'll have at your meetings. Club programs should be varied. They should be exciting. And if we don't have them, we need to create them. A lot of people are going to sit there. What? What does that mean? We're building leaders here. We're in Toastmasters. Toastmasters is where leaders are made. And if we don't give them or give the members a chance to practice the leadership skills they are learning, then we are failing those members. So it's important to create the events and create the opportunities for all the members to put to use everything that they're learning, not just get up and be a speaker, not just get up and do table topics, but everything that they learn. We already talked about members. We should have use of the membership building program. There are three. There are three. We talked about the Smedley Award. There's also Talk Up Toastmasters from February 1 to March 31st. And there's Beat the Clock from May 1 to June 30. Now, I sit here and I emphasize these because if we can change the way our clubs look at memberships and they do these three drives, all three drives say 5 new members in each drive. Well, if you calculate that out, you have 3 drives a year at 5 new members apiece. That's 15 new members in your club every single year. You will never have a membership problem if you run all 3 of these drives and you get 5 new members every single drive. Your club will be hopping. You will have all sorts of people there, all sorts of events going on. The key is finding those new members and getting them involved. So please change the way that some of us think and get some members, because they are going to be the backbone of your future club. Now, I cannot emphasize this next section enough. I've told you over and over that everyone feels like everyone wants to feel like they belong. But I can't emphasize enough that anytime, any achievement, no matter how small it is, it should be recognized, because every single person wants that pat on the back. I'm included. That's why I keep going for those DTMs. I want people to pat me on the back. Oh, you got another DTM. Way to go, Jim. It's a drive for me. I want to stand out more than anybody else. And so when I get recognized for standing out, it makes me happy. And it will do the same thing for everyone else. So award applications should be immediately submitted to headquarters for any of the levels that got completed, for any of the things that happened within the Toastmasters realm. And TI, Toastmasters International, has awards for these things. They should be sent out. For those levels that are completed, you should get the certificates and send out the certificates to the members, or better yet, present them at the club meeting. Everything should be presented openly and as public as possible. The more recognition you have, the more important it is for the club members. It would also help to see a progress chart that's displayed and maintained and accurate. It's kind of hard to do it here visually, but we do have a chart for our physical meetings. And our membership should be recognized with ceremonies. I'm thinking maybe we should change some of the things that we do. We like maybe at the end of the year, we can have a best speaker of the year award and the best table topics of the year award, things like that, just so we have more creative items that are happening and going on. Uh, the members should always get some sort of certificate, something similar to this. So this particular one is for pathways. They completed a certain level and they get this, since this is a certificate of proficiency, that means they completed level 5, and the club should probably award them the pin for that pathway so they can put it on their lapel or on the blue collar. And our DCP should be used for planning and recognition on how well we as a club did. And let's see. So the question now comes up, does this club meet those standards? And of course, we will have to now take in the next officers meeting maybe, or the next club, we will probably present a moments of truth exercise where we take the chart and then you ask everyone how well the club is doing and you label it 1 through 5. And then how important should the club look at it and label that 1 through 5. And where there's a difference of 2 or more, we should be working on those pieces. So those are the things we would have to change for our club. It's important to remember, you can never get a second chance to make a first impression. And I have used up a lot of time. I would like to open up for questions and answers. Does anyone have any questions and answers that we should be doing here tonight? Mary.
One of the things that I've found over the years, it was very important to vote a potential member when they want to join. But you explain them, when you take them out of the room, you got to explain to them, this is protocol for Toastmasters International. Because, do you want to give the reason yourself, Jim, why we do that?
Well, you can give it's well, I shouldn't say it's obvious. Maybe it's not, but you can't vote a member out of the club if you didn't vote them in.
Okay, very good. But, and so then, but we present it in such a way to the new member to make it positive and funny. Okay?
Yeah.
Because they feel very weird going out of the room to have somebody talk about them. Okay? Because there's, yeah, anyway. So doing that, and we really like to have, as secretary, I have kept track of 100% attendance and get 100% at the end of the year. And the best, how many times they got the best speaker and how many times they got the best table topics and how many times. And we've been doing that consistently. And that is really a good celebration. And to celebrate. I think that's so important to celebrate. anything and everything that we can. Hey, we give a first timer ribbon. We made a first timer ribbon. Hey, you present a first timer. You did Toastmaster the first time. Here's your first timer ribbon. Okay. There's a lot of ways that you can celebrate and celebrate and celebrate. You cannot celebrate enough.
Completely agree. Public recognition is very important. Don, sir, you have your hand up.
Yeah, this was really just in line with a suggestion. One we tried, I think it was right at the beginning of the pandemic, where, we haven't had fall contests officially for the last several years, but and I think it may have been, I'm not exactly sure who kind of originated the idea. I'm going to think it might have been Senior Webster but Lance, but it said, why not have a fall contest that you could help coordinate among the other clubs, and it would be unofficial, not necessarily even one of it could be something like a Tall Tales or one that's not necessarily in sync with what's being done officially in the club, but it would do a couple of things. One, it would help, foster more recognition of our club, would give our members in other clubs a chance to practice and learn what a contest is about. It's also a good leadership opportunity, for some of the members. So something we might want to float. Now that's one. Another might be something like a speech marathon. So, or inviting members from other clubs to be able to speak. So maybe thinking about some of those that are, kind of outside the just our club box that might be, appropriate for maybe trying to do as we launch into this first part of the year.
Certainly. Those are all things that can be done. The officers just need to simply decide what they want to do and when they want to do it. And then we can turn around and make them happen. Any time that the club wants to do a special event, there's no reason not to do it.
Yep.
It's a great promotion for the club. Nadine, you have your hand up.
The speech was great, and I think that for me, it's a better understanding to understand how the club world used to work before the pandemic. I joined during the pandemic, so for me, I only know Zoom, and I'm trying to think of how we can, like, when are we going to go back to in-person speeches, and what are we going to do until then to gain more members, even if we don't have the personal interactions, because Zoom is always a little different. I feel like you don't have that in-person feel that you have with other people, that I think is a really tough to like make up in Zoom in order to get more people. Yeah. So my question is, how do we make this at work on Zoom when we don't have all the tools we have that we have in person?
Go ahead. I think Mary has an answer.
Well, suggestion, because we were on Zoom for so long, and finally I was the president, and I invited do a social, and that's where we can bridge that gap, doing socials. And I invited them all to my house and to have a dinner party. And but whatever you want to do, you can go to the park and go on a walk together, whatever people want to do, but have socials in between that, and to build the relationships together. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So again, that goes back to the social events that we had talked about and how important they were, because you're building the relationships of the members even outside of Toastmasters. So they are things that are important. And you brought a couple of people into the meeting, some people that you know. I personally, I always recommend that everybody bring their best friend and their worst enemy, because those are the two people who are going to give you the most honest feedback. So anytime you're getting ready to speak, bring those people with you. And maybe they'll decide to join the club. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Don, you have your hand up again. You have another question?
Oh, no, that was just for me before I forgot to lower it. Sorry about that.
No problem. Does anyone else have a question? Hal, Vivian, May, Lolita?
Well, I think in the past with this club, people seem interested, but then they kind of not want to be committed. So it's like how to convince them. Oh, I
Well,
guess they're schedule wise.
there are a couple of ways of doing it. One of the first things that we should probably do is emphasize the Toastmaster promise, which is on the application. And you know how people are. They'll fill out the application, they'll sign it, and they won't look at it and they won't understand what the Toastmaster promise is. So if we turned around and we held a VP educational minute and talked about the Toastmaster promise, it might put a little more emphasis on their commitment. It is one of the things that we talked about in the moments of truth, where if you decide that you want to do something, that you should show up to the meeting and do it. You should be prepared to handle that. Lalitha, you have your hand up?
Yes. Jim, how do we get the other club meeting invite?
You make contact like Mary Elaine did with us. So Mary Elaine reached out to me and she's asking to put together a 2 club meeting
Mhm.
on August 2nd. So what's going to happen is that some of her members will be coming to our club, and some of our members who have dual roles will be giving up some of those roles to members in her club so that we interact and we make a meeting together.
Okay. Got it.
There's nothing stopping us from reaching out to other clubs and asking them to do that. We can always ask other clubs to give us guest speakers, and you have a guest speaker come in from somewhere else. That's always a pleasure to see how other people from other clubs do speaking, right? Because if we're always the same people in this club speaking the same way all the time, we'll probably get used to each other. And when you have an outsider come in with a different way of speaking, it makes it a little more exciting. So it's always
Right.
fun to have guest speakers from other clubs.
That's true. And is there any other clubs have a in-person meeting? So
There are
that we
there are several clubs that have in-person meeting. Most of them are hybrid.
Mhm.
This club will need to be hybrid if it wishes to keep me and Vivian involved, because Vivian's in the Philippines and I'm in Florida. So if you want to keep us involved, you have to be hybrid, at least. Right? So
No, at
I
least like
I don't think hybrid is going to go away. The cat's out of the bag, right? The
I love this
hybrid's not
hybrid.
going to go away.
I love this hybrid, but in sometimes like to have the public fear of talking in person will help a lot. So
Yes, yes,
we can join other club members or like
yes. I agree with you. It is a difference between this on Zoom and meeting in person.
right.
There's a big difference. It's a total different skill set. But yes, it should be done. And we should go back to in-person meetings as soon as we find a place that we are allowed to do so. Right now, Boston Scientific is not allowing it, and therefore we're not looking at Boston Scientific. So if as club you want to go out and start looking for someplace else, maybe Charter College will allow us back in. That might be an avenue worth looking at and seeing if they will allow that.
Jim,
Yes, Mary.
in the meantime, we have to really work hard to make a hybrid meeting good. They're hard, they're hard, they're hard, they're hard. Unless you have like a Zoom master and
Uh-huh.
to run the hybrid meeting, and you have the speakers and you have 2 or 3 computer screens. And because I've been trying to put that together, all the pieces together.
Sure. Yes,
it-
I agree with you. So it does help to have a Zoom master,
yeah,
and you should have at least 2 camera or computer screens, right? And they would be back to back. So one would be facing
yeah.
the lectern and the other would be facing the audience, so that who's ever on Zoom will be able to see both sides.
Right, and a good sound, because one of our clubs, we've been since August last August, we've been in person. And so we tried to do some hybrids, because I don't always have a ride. I don't drive because I'm not, I had a stroke 5 years ago, so I can't drive. And so sometimes I can't make the meeting. So
Mhm.
they have to Zoom me in, and sometimes you can't even hear. And so anyway.
Yes, and then you also you have some hearing impaired. Like Vivian has a hard time a lot of times to hear me,
Okay.
and if I don't wear this headset, it makes it very hard for her to hear because I come across garbled on her side. So those type of things, you're correct. We should have those type of things set up, and we should figure those out.
Toastmasters does a good job of one of the trainings to list all of the pieces of equipment that you need and how to set it up. So get working, everybody.
Yeah, yeah, get working. Okay, so we are now at 7 o'clock your time. We're at the end. I'm sorry, Lolita, we didn't get to do the other training that you wanted because we took so long on this one. However, since we are closing, if there are no other questions, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and we'll close out the meeting here. So stop, we're stop recording.